Welcome to the Amazing Spider-Man right here at Comicstorian, where we take a lot of your favorite video games, movies, and comic books, breaking down the plots into a synopsis or an audio drama, catching you up on your favorite pop culture element. The Amazing Spider-Man is a story being written by Nick Spencer, and while it's about to enter into its 50th issue, I realized that we left you guys hanging at about issue 31. So that last episode is going to be down below, but it's time for us to tell you the storyline of Spider-Man 2099. Now, you may have heard that title and assumed Miguel O'Hara being here, but I'm going to tell you right now, he's not in this very much. It kind of reintroduces Spider-Man 2099, while Spider-Man is dealing with a device that allows him to see into the future, and Dr. Doom. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into that video. It all started with a fire on an offshore oil rig. The Spider-Man of the year 2099 came to fix things, just like always, except he just made things worse. Now, as Miguel wakes up, he finds himself laying on an operating table with dozens of scientists poking and prodding him. Meanwhile, over in New York, Peter Parker tries to focus on his schoolwork, but he can't help but think about how he got to where he is now. MJ has gone off doing her own thing in Hollywood. Kingpin is, well, being Kingpin, and that thing, like someone is looking over his shoulder, watching. But as Peter gets lost in thought, his classmates Kel and Derek ask if everything's okay. They're supposed to be working on this thing together. Derek says they need to all be participating. They can't have someone plagiarizing something. Just then, another student assigned to the group, Jamie, walks up asking when was the last time that Derek's name had been attached to anything meaningful. As the group laughs, Jamie holds out his wrist, showing off a webware watch. And Peter pauses, realizing that it is the technology that he invented with Parker Industries, so he asks, "Where did you get that, and does it work?" Jamie smiles, asking, "As intended? Nah. But it's reconfigured to be used as an early warning for large-scale emergencies. Comes in handy with all the big alien attacks and whatnot here in New York." But enough about that. We should all probably focus on what we're doing with this accelerator problem. But before they can really dive into the problem, the fire alarm goes off and one of the teachers tells everyone to remain calm and make their way to the exits in an orderly fashion. No shoving. Peter gets up to leave, but before he can go far, a hand reaches out, grabbing him, pulling him to the side. Peter's sister, Teresa, says that he's not going anywhere, he's needed elsewhere. So a short while later on the docks, Chameleon and the Foreigner meet for a drop-off, with Chameleon stating that it wasn't hard getting this stuff with S.H.I.E.L.'s going out of business sale. As requested, he's now the proud owner of the Infinity Formula. Peter jumps in, kicking one of the guards, yelling, "Don't trust it! It's a subscription service! Those things are a scam!" Chameleon sighs, stating that he apologizes for the surprise, and the Foreigner tells him that it isn't really a surprise. Thankfully, though, he did come prepared. Several jack-o'-lanterns attack. Peter asks, "Really? Multiple lanterns? One was already enough!" But as Peter and Teresa fight through, Peter jumps over, telling Foreigner that he makes it really easy to make fun of him. Heck, his name alone is veering dangerously close to offensive territory. Peter and Foreigner begin to exchange blows back and forth with no one clearly winning. But then Peter is pelted in the back with something, and as he looks back, he sees Silver Sable standing there asking, "How? And where did you come from?" Sable aims her gun at Peter's head, asking, "How do we keep meeting like this?" Peter tells her, "It's good to see you too, Sable, but I'm kinda doing something right now. No need to be looking through a sniper lens." Just then there's a click and Teresa tells Sable that he's right. It's a bad look. With Teresa pointing her gun at Sable, Peter says that they all need to just take this down a notch. We're all good guys here, except Foreigner. He's actually one of the bad guys. Foreigner tells Sable that he can handle the girl, and Teresa says, "Really? Then you must not know me." A single gunshot goes off, with Sable's head exploding into a million pieces of metal. Foreigner hurries over to catch the falling LMD, and he shouts, "You have no idea what you just caused!" And Peter says, "You knew it was a robot, right, Teresa? Right?" Another voice then says, "I would hope so." As everyone turns, a van pulls up with the door opening to reveal a badly injured Sable in a portable hospital bed. Foreigner runs over asking her if she's okay, and Sable says that she's fine. So Peter looks at her asking, "Okay, I have no idea what's going on. The last time I saw you, you were fine." Sable tells him that she owes him an apology. During their last encounter, she was killed by the Rhino. When she returned, it was thought that she didn't. Truth is, she was badly hurt after that while aboard Otto's ship. The Rhino left her strapped as the ship plummeted to the earth, and well, this is the result. Foreigner smiles, stating, "That is when I found her. I saved her life." And Sable laughs. "Not much of it, at least." She goes on stating that Foreigner did present her with a gift, an android avatar that she could control with her thoughts. Peter then asks, why would you go to all of that trouble? And Sable says, because of Simkara, my homeland. Right now, Countess Karkov, even after being sentenced to house arrest, is growing her influence. The country is still dependent on the arms manufacturing contracts that I signed during my union with Norman Osborn. Peter says that he doesn't get it. You aren't the one in charge? She laughs, telling him that it's not quite as it seems. My people are torn between poverty and war. Our neighbors to the north have not taken kindly to Simkara's newfound military power. With the return of Latveria's more aggressive leadership regime, border skirmishes are increasing rapidly. The Countess is going to use this war to destabilize the nation and return herself to power. We have to... Sable then begins to cough, and then says that the Avatar was the only way if people knew her true condition. Foreigner says that that's why they needed the Infinity Formula. With Sable's condition being terminal, it's the only chance they have. Teresa says, right, but at a cost. You're going to be on it for the rest of your life, and that's even if your body can take it. For most patients, it doesn't. Foreigner tells her that that is a price that they would gladly take, so Teresa walks off, waving her hand, stating, the hell with this! I came for Chameleon, and he's not even here anymore. You can sit around and figure out what to do about your whole civil war without me. So sometime later, elsewhere, Chameleon asks how does he use this thing? And Hitman tells him, are you kidding? Point, click, kill. The Hitman knows how to do this job. Chameleon begins to fix his tie and changes, stating, all right then, now to slip into something more bureaucratic. But while those events are beginning to unfold, back in New York, Peter rushes to the ESU trying to process everything with Sable when he realizes that he's already late for the presentation. As he walks into the class, he calls out, sorry, the coffee bean line was intense. And Jamie calls out, there he is, come up here so we can begin this thing. Peter tells them that he didn't know that he was the one presenting. And Jamie laughs, telling everyone that Peter here is the real brains behind it. Peter stumbles over his work, stating, hey, as you're all aware, I was recently accused of taking credit for work I didn't do, but I want to be very clear that I didn't do anything on this. Jamie holds up the WebWatchware and says, you did, you just didn't know it. I recently collected information and it was immediately encrypted. Now, if the individuals who are given envelopes can begin to open them and read the cards out loud, Jamie asks Kel what time did Peter arrive. She says that he arrived at 4:26. Jamie then asks Derek what color shirt is Peter wearing, and Derek says red. Finally, Jamie asks Dr. Connors what was Peter's excuse for being late. Sorry that the coffee bean line was intense, was the answer. Peter pauses for a moment and Jamie goes on explaining that he has made a device. What if they had the ability to see the future? Not just their future, but any future. Introducing Clairvoyant. Thanks to Reed Richards, we now know that we live in an infinite multiverse, which means that any choice that we could make somewhere out there, it's already been made. Clairvoyant peers across the multiverse looking for anomalies, then gauges and weighs the preponderance, finally leading us to the statistical likelihood of a given outcome. Right now, it is extremely limited. We would need a power source big enough and adaptive enough to increase the quantum computing capabilities. But imagine the eventual applications in technology, medicine, and politics. It could be a game changer. From this moment on, the future just became a lot less scary. But meanwhile, over in the UN, Chameleon stands before the world's representatives, letting them know that he stood by for years supporting and advocating for peace with the Latveria regime. But in the light of recent events, corroborated by satellite imagery and human intelligence, they must now abandon any hope for a change with Latveria. They must instead join together in condemnation and severist reprisal. A voice then says that is enough as the representative of Latveria takes the stage. The representative begins to state that they have been accused of so much, unjustly, and with no shortage of hypocrisy. They have made their infantile claim, and now they can bow in deference, as Latveria answers. Outside, a limo pulls up and Hitman readies himself, stating that the target has been sighted. Repeat, target sighted. I have my eyes on Doom. Meanwhile, back in New York after the ESU presentation, Peter tells Jamie that this is really something that can improve the world. The fact that he can survey and observe the multiverse. Just think of the things that they can prevent. The possibilities are endless. Jamie says that the possibilities might be, but right now this thing is very limited. It took me all day to determine something relatively minor. The Clairvoyant needs a much bigger power source to do quantum computing on that level, which is why I'm asking you for help, Peter. You know how to build something from the ground up and manage a large-scale project. Peter says, yeah, but he also knows how to send it spiraling into disaster. Just look it up. Jamie hands Peter a device stating that it's time someone else got a chance to do something great and I'm trusting you with it. Peter looks at the Clairvoyant, telling him that he will do what he can. He'll get started right. But before he could even finish, the fire alarm goes off and Derek runs in asking, "What are you guys standing there for?" Peter asks what's going on, and Derek explains that the world is up in arms right now because someone shot and killed Victor Von Doom. Elsewhere in Samkara, Countess Karkov laughs as she sits at her computer stating that she knew Doom wouldn't be able to resist a direct challenge. Chameleon shrugs, telling her that he admired her plan, but if he had known that she was actually going to be successful in it, he would have thought twice. Latveria is a powerful enemy to have, and this will certainly escalate things from here. Karkov says that he could always refuse payment, and Chameleon says, "Oh, perish the thought." Karkov sits back in her chair, stating that she suggests that he gets comfortable. The rooftop, the sniper, the bullet, in all of its unique glory, are merely preamble. The best is yet to come. So a short while later, back at the UN, Latveria security surround Doom's body, shouting that no one will touch Lord Doom! Peter swings down, stating that that is going to be a problem. Doom promised that we were going to arm wrestle. Best 2 out of 3. As he jumps onto Doom, he begins to inspect the body while the Latveria security pile on top of him. After a few minutes, Peter pulls himself out, stating, "I knew it! It's a Doom bot all along." He holds the Doombot head up, telling everyone that there is no reason to send flowers or anything. Just remember, it's always a Doombot with this guy. The Doombot then shocks Peter and says, "You are all fools. I understand what just happened here, and there will be a reckoning demanded." But while the Doombot powers himself up, a weak Miguel runs forward towards the conflict, stating, "Arius, I just gotta reach him." As the Doombot lunges, Miguel, also known as the Spider-Man of 2099, jumps up, grabbing Peter, yelling, "There he is! Can't wait!" Suddenly, several hulking men come crashing through, chasing after Miguel, and Peter asks, "What the heck is even going on now?" Miguel gets up, grabbing Peter's arm, telling him, "I can't wait! I've come back to find you!" As a protective web shield forms, Peter says, "This is, and I realize this is very on the nose, but you could have picked a much better time, Miguel. I thought if there was any more time travel that the timeline would collapse, which means it's already happening, isn't it, buddy?" Miguel says, "You remember, it started slowly, things changing, altering right in front of us, then chaos. Our scientists kept trying to find a solution, and we discovered an anomaly, something that is causing the timeline to collapse, and it led back here, just like it always does. The difference between you and the other multiverses is that the future that I come from is the future of this Earth." Just then, Miguel's body begins to vibrate, and it latches onto Peter, telling him, "I wish I could stay. There's so much I need to explain, but life's waiting, and there's no time like the present." Suddenly, there's a massive explosion of light, knocking the stuff that is chasing Miguel away while destroying the Doombot. Peter slowly gets back up, stating, "All right, I admit it. I have no idea what just happened, but I have a feeling it wasn't good. Miguel? Miguel, where'd you go? He can't be, no, whatever this is. It isn't over." Soon, a loud, commanding voice can be heard. "People of this cesspool you call a city, it is on your soil that a great crime has occurred. Against your true superior, an act of unspeakable violence. The visage of your eventual ruler desecrated. All of this after your so-called leaders cursed his name. Do you really believe that these sins would go unpunished? Doom says no. Doom demands justice." Peter tells himself, "All right, so there was an attempted assassination on Dr. Doom. Bad idea. Which has now led to an angry Doombot, an out-of-nowhere fight between the Spider-Man of 2099 and some freakishly large men. Then there was some kind of explosion that led to Doom himself shutting down all of Manhattan in the name of, get this, justice. As far as international incidents go, this one ranks a 6 out of 5 on the Maria Hills." With Doombots flooding the streets, New York heroes head out to try and fight them back, with Peter meeting up with Teresa, asking if she has any idea what may have caused this. Teresa continues flying, stating that she knows who. It was the Chameleon. Peter then asks, "Isn't this Countess Karkov?" Sable says that she's trying to incite a war between Samkara and Latveria. Teresa tells him yes, and Chameleon is working for Karkov. She's already on her way to get him. Meanwhile, over at Chameleon's safe house, he looks out the window, stating that this isn't good, not at all. And on the screen, Karkov says, "Don't be such a ninny. You understand what we're trying to accomplish here." Chameleon tells her, yes, a war between two countries. Not war on my doorstep. I'll just blend in as Latveria security to avoid all of this mess. Karkov laughs, telling him that it isn't a bad idea, but it doesn't matter. She already gave away his coordinates. Just then, Peter and Teresa burst in, and while in disguise, Chameleon yells, "Thank Doom you're here! My name is Leonardo Val." Teresa fires a shot into Chameleon's arm, with Peter yelling no. Teresa asks, "What? You don't think I know how to shoot to wound?" He'll live, assuming he gets the medical care immediately. And how much of a hurry I'm in to get him that medical care depends on how much of a hurry he's in to cooperate. Chameleon changes his face to look like a dead friend of Teresa's, telling her, "Oh, how I've missed you." Teresa punches him, grabbing a hold of him, telling him, "Talk!" And Chameleon yells, "You misunderstand. I'm not the killer. I only provided the trigger." Peter then says that actually makes sense. Chameleon here isn't known for his bravery. Chameleon goes on telling them that he can help them track down the gunman that Doom seeks. So about 20 minutes later, in an abandoned warehouse, Peter just simply says, "You gotta be kidding me," because the hitman is looking pretty dead. Chameleon tells him, "Yeah, he is. Did I forget to mention that? Hitman died years ago, but he was brought back by Ben Reilly, who was going by Jackal then through cloning, the clone conspiracy. But it would seem that we don't have to worry about Hitman being a hitman any longer." Teresa pulls her gun, but Peter pulls her to the side, telling her that they just need to think this one out. They need to stick together and come up with a plan. The one guy that Doom wanted is now dead, and they can't very well just present Hitman like that. Teresa pauses for a moment and says that he's glowing, by the way. Peter stops her. "Really? I didn't think I sold you on the just beat people into unconsciousness but make sure not to murder them thing." And Teresa tells him, "No, your backpack, it's glowing, Peter." He reaches behind, taking out the Clairvoyant, stating, "Oh, right. This could have helped us if... Wait, it's fully charged?" Peter pauses for a few minutes and then says, "Miguel. He came back and set off an energy burst. It must have supercharged the Clairvoyant." Teresa asks, "So you have a device that can predict outcomes, but you don't know what to do about Doom?" And Peter looks at the device, stating that the diagnostics do look good and are operating in a safe range. Why not? As he begins to use the Clairvoyant, he's suddenly swept away to a world of endless possibilities when a glowing person stops and asks him how they can help. Peter asks who she is, and the person says that her name is Lila, an artificial construct brought to him by Alchemex. Peter tries to come up with something witty to state, but instead he says that he's looking for his friend Miguel O'Hara. Lila tells him that Miguel isn't here right now, but she can assist him with navigating the infinite reality projections available to him to find the best possible solution to their problem. We do have a problem, right? A minute later, Peter returns stating that he knows what to do, but they're going to need Chameleon. Outside, Doom yells, "I grow tired of waiting. Bring me the one who struck my vessel, or you shall pay in his stead." Just then, the Chameleon comes out stating that they have caught the assassin. He put up quite a struggle, but they're happy to report that he was killed in battle. Apparently, he was working for a new Clansdine organization, and they can brief him on the way back to the homeland. Hiding in another building, Teresa says that this is so not going to work. Peter tells her to trust him. Doom stands back up after examining the body, asking, "Do you think you could trick Doom?" Teresa says that she knew that this wouldn't work, and Chameleon yells, "So did I!" And Doom holds out his hand and then obliterates Peter and Teresa. Peter lays burning on the ground as he says that this was supposed to work. "Teresa?" Doom shrinks down, stepping forward, telling him, "She is dead, and all that remains is Doom." Peter laughs, telling him, "At least it's the real you. It's always the smell that gives you away, Doomy." As Doom burns the rest of Peter to ash, the real Peter says, "Wow, okay, let's not do that one." Lila then asks what possibility would he like to look at next. Peter tells her that he isn't sure, but he's got a few ideas. He looks at some of the outcomes where he teams up with just about everyone, one where he upgrades himself, and even one where he makes a deal with the devil. But all of them end the same. Doom will stand triumphant, usually with Peter Parker dead. Just then, Peter returns stating, "All right, I know what to do." Off in another building, Teresa asks if he's sure, and Peter tells her, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, 81% sure." So 10 minutes later, with everything on fire and Peter badly wounded, he says that this was supposed to work. Doom sighs as he fights Peter, telling him, "Impertinence." Peter quickly webs up Doom's hand to stop him from shooting, but Doom grabs the web, whipping it around, throwing Peter into a wall and then blasting him. The explosion throws Peter into the air, sending him crashing into a gas truck. Peter then shakes his head as he leans up, and then he sees the truck leaking. Ah, great. Punctured the hull. Might as well make use of it. He jumps down, webbing up the truck, throwing it at Dr. Doom. As the truck explodes, Doom walks out of the fire with Peter telling him that he knew that wasn't going to work. Doom says that he fought valiantly, but his demand was for justice, and he is the one who presented himself. Peter tries to run, but Doom blasts more of the buildings, bringing them down on Peter. He then grabs him by the neck, telling him, "Your death will be what defines you in life." Back in the Clairvoyant, Peter asks, "Really? Can't we just tell Doom like the truth?" Lila says that would have a 38% chance of success. So Peter asks, "What if we let Doom beat me up a bit?" And Lila says, 51% chance of success. But back at the hands of Doom, Peter yells, "Wait! It was all a trap, don't you see? Hitman was the shooter, but he died before we could get any information out of him. Besides, this is exactly what they wanted. The whole world to watch as you destroy everything. They want war, and they're betting that they can goad you into this, Doom. Think about it. Why would they do it here? They knew that it would be a Doom bot, because, well, that's your shtick. Now are you going to let them manipulate things?" Doom pauses. "This was just another game?" And Peter asks, "Does it look like I'm lying?" Doom releases his grip on Peter, but before returning back to Latveria, he sends the bots to do a lot of things, specifically not killing anyone. The damages could be in the millions or even billions, and some of it could be irreplaceable. Peter leaps at Doom, telling him to stop, but Doom blasts him away, telling him, "Silence! Doom answers to no man!" Meanwhile, elsewhere on the beach, Miguel picks himself up, asking, "Where am I?" He begins to wander through the small terrace town, but as he looks around, he sees a woman with a very familiar face, and she asks, "Miguel?" But back in the States, Sable is laying in the hospital bed recovering when a voice tells her that the people at the front desk said that she wasn't having any visitors. But she looks up to see Karkov walk in with flowers, and Karkov goes on stating, "Don't worry, the guards that you're about to call are already dead. Besides, I'm here in celebration. It seems that the Infinity Formula is working quite well, and you should make a full recovery in a few weeks." Which is a relief. You aren't going to want to miss what happens next. You've seen the news, no? This poor city, attacked by a madman. The international community is now squarely behind Simkara in our conflict with the Latverians. They can't send enough money or soldiers fast enough. Oh, and the sanctions pass? Easily. Killing Doom is the last thing that I wanted. The gun used was actually a special one. It fired a very unique bullet, one that was designed to infiltrate the Doombot's network. With the payload delivered, anyone can hack into the system and do anything that they'd like to do. Since Doom would never admit that he lost control of his own network, his own army, even for a moment, he'd rather sooner be blamed for an attack that he did not incite than allow his pride to be wounded. Now it is a war. Easy enough. It is man's natural state after all. And when the shooting starts, who do you think our people will look to? The hypocritical mercenary who preaches peace while they've wallowed in poverty and filth? So yes, do get your rest, Sable. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other soon again. And that brings us to the conclusion of Spider-Man versus Doom. So if you're wondering what ended up happening at the end of all of this, Doom was tricked into a war. He still destroyed a good chunk of New York, but it was eventually stopped by Spider-Man, which will bring us to our next Spider-Man storyline. Now you're probably wondering, Benny, when are you going to get to the next Spider-Man storyline? This was issues 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. So that means that we're going to be doing 37 and 38 either next week or the week after. We will be getting into it very, very soon to catch you up in its entirety on the current Spider-Man plot. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Don't forget to sign up at YouTube memberships where you can get early access to our next Spider-Man chapter, or go to our Patreon where you will get early access to our next Spider-Man chapter. Thank you guys so much for your ongoing support. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you over on our Twitter at Comicstorian. Anyway, I'm out. See you later.